Hey everybody, welcome on back. It's the 2024 season of Rubbin Is Racing. It's myself. It's my esteemed partner, Spider, who right now is in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. They can't throw a Super Bowl. They can't throw a party in Vegas without my man Spider being there. And then in the studio in Chicago is Quigs. Just got back from the Grammys. He had written that speech for Jay-Z last night. And then behind the ones and twos, we have a new face. We have a gentleman named Manoli. Liam has been pulled from different directions. So Spider and I demanded somebody who was motivated and Greek. So they gave us Manoli Stavrakis. So he's going to be behind the ones and twos this season. We're going to get him down to Daytona for his first race in a couple of weeks. So we appreciate him. You're going to be hearing his voice. It's kind of weird, so don't be afraid. This episode is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, and that's Cabo Wabo Tequila. It's an unquestionably Mexican tequila with an undeniably American attitude. Cabo Wabo isn't just tequila. It's damn good, thick cut. Does anyone know what kind of agave it is? Do you know? Spider, you. What is it?
Blue Weber agave.
Damn right, 100% Blue Weber agave. That's thick cut, 100% Blue Weber agave tequila. It's the official tequila partner of NASCAR. A bold splash to race day, watching with Cabo Wabo tequila. If you're heading to the Daytona 500 on February 18th, you can come celebrate race day with Cabo Wabo. We're going to give you some details on that in just a minute. And Cabo Wabo wants to remind you that leave the driving to the professionals this Daytona 500. Please enjoy the thick cut, bold taste of Cabo Wabo tequila responsibly. So you can grab you and your buds can grab a bottle of Cabo Wabo tequila for the boldest race day experience. You got to be 21 years or older, so please handle this responsibly and enjoy Cabo Wabo and enjoy Rubbin Is Racing. All right, so we're back. This is the first episode of 2024. We're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the new Netflix special, and we're also going to talk about, obviously, the Clash in LA, which we did not go to. How we doing, boys? Spider, let me go to you first. How's everything going? Are you glad we didn't go to LA? How'd you like the Netflix special? What's going on, my friend?
I'm glad we didn't go to LA. It seemed like a little bit rainy. I do want to give NASCAR credit. I love the fact that they were flexible with, modifying the schedule. I think we saw, I wrote a blog about how often NASCAR was impacted by rain last year, but it's an alarming number north of like 45%, I'm pretty sure. That being said, I love NASCAR taking the initiative early this season with the first race. They see rain in the forecast and they pivot accordingly. That being said, I'm not in LA. I'm in Vegas, where it's surprisingly also raining in the desert here. So pumped to be here for Super Bowl week festivities, but really looking forward to getting down to Daytona next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Daytona too. Quigs, you'd binge watched the Netflix thing just yesterday. What did you think?
I liked it a lot. I got a bunch of notes that we can go through as we talk about it, but I thought it was very good. I never watched Drive to Survive, so I don't really have a comparison of like if it was as good as that or not. But I thought it was very good. I have a few critiques though.
All right, let's get into it. I'll tell you right away. As I started watching it, I noticed it was the Denny and Bubba show. I mean, it was the Denny and Bubba show, and I think the easy answer to that is that Denny Hamlin and 2311 provided the Netflix crew with 100% access to every part of his life, including his kid's bedroom. Like, Denny was all in on that. And I think for people that sort of get involved and interested in the sport, having Michael Jordan, fucking just casually floating around the background does us a favor, and us being like NASCAR guys. I liked it. I liked the show, and I know that we're a little bit more invested than most people, and we saw a lot of friends, familiar faces in it and whatnot. I saw Mamba got a little spot. I was infuriated that with all the races that we've gone to, there isn't one single shot of Spider and I walking around the background, announcing numbers. Like when we announce Spider, don't you think that we should have gotten some shine on that fucking thing?
If I have one critique with the series is that they use too much cinematic lenses, in which that really only the subject in the front of the picture was in focus. Everyone else was blurred out. Very movie-like, very cinematic. It looks good. But that being said, I think it kind of would have been fun to just keep it all in focus and write a hunt for themselves and say, oh, I know I was at this race. Like, oh, I remember walking the grid this time. Like, look for me here. I know what I was wearing. That would be a cool little Easter egg. But that being said, I would have loved to be included, but obviously not. I do love what they did include, though. Like you said, Large, it seems like 2311 gave them pretty much unprecedented access whereas it seemed like the other teams were a little bit skeptical to do that. Like Trackhouse, I would have loved to see what Justin Marks is building and what really makes them different from all these other traditional NASCAR teams that have been around, for years and years. And really, instead, all we got was kind of Ross Chastain going swimming at his fishing hole with his buddy, which leads me to believe, I'm not blaming Trackhouse, like some of these teams were a little bit more hesitant to get involved than others. And my other complaint, I would say, Keselowski was asked, why wasn't he involved? And he replied that he was never asked. He's another guy that I would love to see more on. He's a guy that is tiptoeing that line as Denny is with the driver and team owner. And to me, that's super interesting. We saw that kind of lens with the Denny Hamlin in 2311 train, but I would also like to see it maybe in season 2 feature Brad Kay and what RFK is building, especially with the success that him and Chris Buescher had this year. That being said, one last thought on the Netflix series. It is our job and a podcast, a priority to kind of like tell stories that otherwise wouldn't be told, or like share kind of, experiences and et cetera. We heard stories that I've never heard before. And I would have loved for Denny or Tyler Reddick to share these stories on our own podcast here selfishly. But nonetheless, it was still really cool to see him on TV. I love that Denny Hamlin's father was gifted a giant cigar like this big from MJ, and it was in a glass case, and it says, "Break this glass when Denny wins a championship. We will celebrate the championship together, and we will burn the cigar." That was really cool, and that's something that, like, I don't know what other platform really that would have been shared on. And then Tyler Reddick, I thought it was really cool with him, seeing him and his wife, his fiance, while they were pregnant with their first child, and the naming debate. And Tyler Reddick and his girlfriend disagreed on what they wanted the baby's name to be. And she said to him, "Hey, if you win the championship, you can name our son whatever you want." And sure enough, Tyler went on to win. The show shows his girlfriend running out and being like, "The baby's name is Bo," which I just thought was a really wholesome, cool moment. And again, another great story that I have yet to hear. So I think the show did a great job in that regard. Quigs, what did you think of it?
I thought it was really good. I think, but kind of like some of the things, like Denny's the star, obviously. And he probably did allow more access than some people, but I think it's just more his personality. Like, from being like a video editor and knowing stuff, they just probably didn't get anything from Chris Bell. Like, they could film Chris Bell for 100 hours and Denny for 100 hours. And when you go to the final edit, it's going to be 90% Denny. Because Denny just has so much stuff going on in his life. Like, it seems like a lot of these guys race, they go back to their house in Lake Norman and just cut their grass and do nothing. Like, Denny has so much interesting stuff going on in his life that he just like kind of took over the camera time by just probably having the most interesting stuff.
And I think he was the most interesting storyline in the playoffs, right? Because you had Bubba go further than most people thought he would. You had Tyler Reddick alive in the playoffs, and then you had Denny, doing that quest for the first championship. So keeping in mind that this NASCAR Full Speed is just about the 2023 playoffs. So yeah, you got very little coverage of Ross Chastain punching Noah Gragson. Got no coverage of Noah at all. It's absolutely crazy that NASCAR and Netflix got together to do a documentary, and Chase Elliott wasn't even like shown in the background, basically. Like the perennial most popular driver in the universe. I know he had a down year last year, but just wasn't there. So I'll tell you one of the things that I liked, and you guys bonk me all the time because of it. They gave the wives and girlfriends, the WAGs, they gave them a lot of camera time. And listen, that works out well because I think that Ryan Blaney is a great champion and a great mouthpiece for NASCAR going forward. Right age, right, demeanor, temperament, right pedigree. His dad's awesome to talk to, talking about his grandfather Lou and whatnot. But Gianna is awesome on camera. Like, seeing that relationship, plus she's very pretty to look at. I thought that his sister did a great job. Like, his sister who's dating William Byron, I thought she did a great job. Christopher Bell's wife was like, you saw how she was gutted. Alexa was on the floor with Bo in Reddick's trailer saying, "Hit the gas, Tyler!" Mary Lou, Denny's mom.
The scene when Alexa and Tyler were like dressed as Mario, and then they were like, "Wait, has anyone seen our kid? I should probably go find our kid." And Alexa just walks off screen. Like, I don't know, that kind of stuff. The behind the scenes when they did the whole Halloween for the kids at the track.
Yeah,
that stuff is to me what the show nailed.
Yeah, the dad talk,
as you said,
where it was Dale and Tyler, where they were almost like being like film critics for like Peppa Pig and all the shows that kids watch. But that's just like, I guess, what dads do. Like, they get forced to watch these, so they have to like pick their favorite shows out of the kids' shows.
Absolutely right, though, Large. It seemed like the 2311 Demlin, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace show, especially with the wives mixed in there too. I thought Alexa did a great job, and I was really impressed with a lot of these people who aren't really media trained. They seemed like some of the stars of the show, particularly Booty Barker, who I love from Bubba Wallace's team. He's a fucking character. And I know formerly on Twitter, on NASCAR, I would hear the name and I would like make fun of him and be like, Booty Barker, there's no way like that's a real guy. That's just like a meme. And now like having knowing the man behind the legend behind the name is just so cool. And he just seems like a legend. He's so important to that 2311 team, and just seeing him sit on top of the pit box and him and MJ go back and forth about like strategy and race calls is just incredible to me.
I think he was like, you had mentioned two of them, Spider. I think those are two silent stars. Booty Barker was a silent star of that production, and so is Mr. Hamlin, Denny Sr. They wound up being guys, like even like Kyle Larson. They had like a weird part of him in like a sauna. I was like, like they were the people who showed up on the peripheral. I don't know. Byron got like a very good expose of William Byron. Came from the sim racing and stuff like that. Did all that tech shit. Like you got to see some of the tech stuff that these guys go. He had the glasses.
Byron has all the trophies in the world. This guy won 6 races last year. And when the Netflix cameras come to his house, the thing he's got behind him, front and center, is his like 10,000 piece Titanic Lego set.
Yes.
Like that is the kind of stuff that I love seeing. Like he's not impressed by his trophies. He wanted everyone to see his fucking Lego set.
I will tell you right now, I went online, Spider, Lego.com, and I saw a Titanic set. It's $700. Because my wife loves Titanic and she likes to do puzzles and stuff. I watched the thing and I said casually, I was like, you know what? Maybe Valentine's Day. That's not the worst gift in the world. Sold out. Back order. So if you think that it's dragging eyes to NASCAR, I hope it is. It's dragging eyes to fucking Lego, which is awesome. And speaking with NASCAR people, they're all hoping it comes back. Who do you think should be kind of the star? They can't do the Denny show again. They can't do the Denny show, and there's plenty of other, wood to chop here, especially as we know we're going into a really interesting season. Like, who do you think's the potential to be the star of NASCAR Full Speed Season 2?
I have 2 takes I'll start with, and one was what I mentioned was RFK. I would love to see Brad K as he kind of turns the corner into like a veteran driver and into the owner kind of mode of his life. That being said, I would also love if this show took some inspiration from a show called Hard Knocks, an NFL show where they follow kind of an underdog NFL team as they head into the season. I think it would be really cool to see kind of, some of some of the guys that run in the back of the pack. I would like to see like, what makes Wood Brothers special, the tradition they run in their garage, or some of the guys that don't get the shine, JT Doherty, Ricky Stenhouse's and his team's success following their Daytona 500, stuff like that. So maybe the smaller teams to get some shine, because as much as this did a really good job of capturing these drivers, it's the matter of the fact is these are drivers that, probably get most of the limelight anyways. And rightfully so. As you said, this is a playoff kind of showcase. So it's meant to be about the best drivers. But I would like to see them kind of pivot outside of that in the future.
I think the opposite. I think you need like Kyle Busch, because this like as cool and I think I kind of ran into it while I was watching, where it was like there were parts where I was like, yeah, I know this. I'm a NASCAR fan. I don't need an explanation on this or whatever. But it's like the show is not for us. It's for hopefully people that have never watched NASCAR that will watch this and be like, oh, Denny Hamlin is unbelievable. I'm going to start tuning into a race or two, and then hopefully you turn them into a fan. But I don't know if you'd get that same hook with, like, Wood Brothers and stuff like that. I think you need, like, the personality, people who have things going on in their life outside of just showing up to the track racing. Like, I feel like Kyle is the most similar to Denny, and, like, has a lot of stuff going on that would be interesting to know about.
I wouldn't mind seeing.
To be clear, I feel like
Go.
both can be true. Sorry, Large. As much as there should be relevant, playoff drivers that have a chance and a good shot to win the championship, I very much want that in season 2. I just think that some of the guys that don't get recognition should maybe be included or at least invited. And maybe from there they can decline the invite. But to me, Brad Kay getting no invite is inexcusable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what one of my gripes, I guess, a little bit was, I think episode 1, which they didn't do, should have been it should just be an awesome recap of the entire season. Like, if they would have filled episode 1 with behind the scenes looks of, like, Chase's snowboarding weekend that, like, tore his season down. If you get Chastain in that little, like, probably 10 race hot streak when everyone in the world hated him and he was fighting everyone, and a few other storylines that are like, this is what led to the playoffs, and then you can go with 4 episodes about the playoffs. But I think there's so much meat left on the bone with just doing an awesome 1 episode recap of the season, getting some people that, because that, like, if they want to do this every year, they're going to be limited on who they can who can be the stars of the show. It has to be playoff drivers, and it's kind of has to be focused on whoever the last 4 are. So doing that, you can get anyone you want in the show if you do something like that.
If they do go outside of just the playoff format, then I think that they missed a couple of things that are pretty, I don't know, singular to this season. One of them was the punch. Like, if they did the anatomy of the punch and what led up to it, and then maybe told a little bit of the Gragson story, I think that would have interested people. And I don't think we're going to get that punch again anytime soon. So I thought, and then the anatomy of the flip. Like, I think the Ryan Preece thing, if they would have had a counter, first, second, third, 11 and a half times, and then how, his wife was, almost in labor, and maybe him coming back with the black eyes. And again, I know not a playoff driver and whatnot, but I think there were a couple of singular moments that we might not, I hope we don't get the Ryan, like, even if they went into anatomy of a crash, like hockey, we know we watch for fights, right? I mean, like NASCAR, we watch Daytona for crashes sometimes. It's just the way that it is. And we had a couple of spectacular ones. So they did get into the Blaney one where he hit that wall fucking hard, but we had a couple of them that they went by, and instead I learned that Denny Hamlin, definitely has a cook, because the way he burnt those fucking pancakes was disgraceful, I also, if I'm going to point out one thing, Michael Jordan palmed Tyler Reddick's head. I say Tyler Reddick doesn't get enough respect in the 2311 garage because he's a better driver than Bubba Wallace. I mean, it's just facts. Maybe Bubba is more marketable, and we can't wait to have Bubba on the show this year. I'm a Tyler simp. And when Michael Jordan palmed his fucking little head, you know what I mean? I was like, man, put some respect on his name, So I listen, if you're not a huge NASCAR fan, and you might be and listen to the show, since a lot of us are just getting into it, like Manoli and whatnot, I think it's very worthwhile. And, to hear the Denny, I beat your favorite driver, that's a sound clip that we're not going to get again. I'm really glad that they put that in. Not putting in the sound clip of Joey when he was getting towed, where was he, in Gateway or something? And he went fucking crazy on the crew. I think that probably would have been something. So to Quiggs' point, well, the Spider's point, I'd love for them to get something in, like maybe Zane Smith. And Zane Smith has a WEG that we all, Michaela's, Trackhouse.
Trackhouse,
exactly.
RFK are my must-haves for season 2. Those are 2 exciting teams with interesting, different stuff going on. And also maybe mix in, I said I kind of wanted an underdog story. Hear me out. Mix in Stewart-Haas Racing. They're kind of a lot of people are talking shit on them and thinking they've taken a step back, losing a lot of sponsors with HARVICK's retirement, etc. I would love to see firsthand what's going on in the walls there, as well as Trackhouse, their excitement, and RFK with Brad K and the ownership lens. Those are my short list season 2 recommendations.
They will have a legitimate Rookie of the Year contest this year, unlike last year where it was just Ty. So, we're going to have Hocevar and Berry and Zane, right? John Hunter's coming back. And, so I think they're going to have something real to look at there. So I'm hoping that they come back, and I think there's a lot more that they can do. But what they've done so far, I think, is a good gateway drug. It's a gateway drug, maybe to get people involved in the sport. I hope. And listen, it won't do for NASCAR what it did for Formula One, because Formula One thing started 5 years ago, and streaming services have gotten a lot more diverse since then. 5 years ago, Netflix was the only place we were going once we got off of cable, for the most part, right? And now I don't even know what I'm paying for anymore. I hit on my Apple TV. I'm like, Andy, I buy Hulu. She's like, yeah, I buy. So you know what I mean? There's so many other.
I get that all the time.
There's so many other options.
I went to log into something or sign up for a streaming service the other day, and I've just had it for the past 3 years. Yeah. Never used it.
I couldn't find the new I thought it was the new HBO show with Jodie Foster, True Detective. When did that move from HBO? I think it's Apple TV. So, we have a lot more options. So I don't expect it to be the lightning in a jar that it was for Formula One. But even if it does a percentage, it's good for NASCAR going forward. And it, for right now, it doesn't seem like NASCAR needs it so much, because the first race of the year is coming up and it's sold out. Like now, Daytona's been sold out for weeks. So I'm just going to mention right now, the most iconic race in motorsports, the Great American Race, 500 miles, 200 laps on a 2.5 mile long track. The Daytona 500 starts at 2:30 p.m. on February 18th on Fox. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to be the Grand Marshal. The Rock's going to be there. There's going to be a pre-race show featuring none other than my man Pitbull. And then they tell you all the star drivers who are going to be racing in it, everybody across the board. So we're going to see what Chase Elliott has. We're going to see returning champion Ryan Blaney, obviously Denny Hamlin, Ross Chastain, and the crowd favorite Bubba Wallace. So the Daytona 500, the most iconic race in motorsports, is finally here. Tune in on February 18th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. I want to get into the Clash. So we're sitting here on a Monday. We were expecting to talk about the Clash. We were thinking maybe Monday's not going to be the way, because there might have been some rain. Maybe it's going to be a Martin Monday type situation if it's delayed, as we had seen so many times last season. But instead, because of rain, NASCAR had moved it from Sunday afternoon to a Saturday night. And from a weather perspective, they did the right thing. I think California in the last 2 days has gotten anywhere between 5 and 9 inches, something my wife has never gotten. And they're only supposed to get more rain all the way out through Wednesday. So I think that NASCAR had two decisions to make. Change this thing to Saturday or cancel it. Because I can't imagine keeping haulers out there and keeping people who drove from Charlotte to LA, who then drive back to Charlotte, then to get down to the duel at Daytona. I just think it's too much. You're not going to grab a crowd. You can't take the Coliseum for that many goddamn days. It would have been an absolute shit show trying to do it on Wednesday, and nobody wants a rained out thing. So I think NASCAR, the way that they had handled it, was the correct way. But I can tell you right now, NASCAR lost a ton of money on this. I mean, I had listened to NASCAR radio today. That young lady who we played kickball with, Danielle Trotta, she had someone call in and say, I had bought tickets. They were immediately refunded. And then you had to buy parking passes, I think through ParkWiz, through NASCAR, and it was immediately refunded. So they got the money back to people, and Saturday's ticket was free because it was originally free to get in free to watch some of the heats. And so everyone who went there to watch the heats could stick around and watch the whole goddamn event. So, the couple of thousand people that were there were probably thrilled about it. The 5,000 people who had bought seats for the next day probably weren't. But I don't think there's anything NASCAR could have done. How did you guys feel about the broadcast? How did you guys feel about the Clash not being there? I didn't want to go because I didn't feel like it was that great last year. But what did you feel about it?
I'll start. I think the Clash is a solid event. I think it's a great idea. I think market now where without auto clubs, so LA really kind of has that to claim as their NASCAR market, which is good. And in years past, the attendance rate for this event has been like north of 50% had been first-time fans, which is great and what you want out of an event like this. You try to on-ramp fans into the sport. That being said, I feel like it's run its course. I do want to give NASCAR credit for audibling and moving it. We saw kind of the first efforts with this happen last year with the Chicago street races. They scrambled to get that on spontaneously as the rain kind of subsided in Chicago there. And I like what they did in LA. You need to do this. You got to get the race in. It has to happen. And it sucks that they took a loss on it. But at the end of the day, I mean, you had like 40% higher, 40% or higher of the weekends last year were impacted by rain. You have to take action. And I don't know. I think NASCAR would be smart to kind of position themselves to be more nimble in a way where they can easily audible like this moving forward in the future, especially as I keep beating a dead horse, seeing how much rain has impacted their schedule in the past.
Let me ask you a question before you go on to the broadcast, Spider. So seeing what happened in Chicago, we were boots on the ground. We were wearing slickers. Remember we put on those stupid ponchos? We had seen those tires floating in the pit. I mean, it was biblical, that rain. You build a fucking ark, don't hold a race. And then the rain that they're getting in LA has also been something that they haven't seen in quite some time, historic rain levels. I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think God hates it when NASCAR gets out of the South?
I think it's just really, really bad, unfortunate luck. They race in some very nice
You don't think God's
climates.
involved?
God is a race fan. God is a race fan. There's a reason that tire didn't hit the grandstands at the Indy 500 a couple of years ago. There's a reason Ryan Preece survived the flip. I could go on and on. Okay, God is a race fan. That being said, he's also a fan of the water cycle, I guess, if you will. You know, sometimes Mother Nature has to do its thing and run its course. But the most important thing to me is that NASCAR is in a position where they are not losing a shit ton of money should they need to audible and move the race a day earlier or 12 hours later or whatever it may be.
Well, I think they
nimbleness.
did lose a shit ton of money on that.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm saying maybe they write contracts in the future that says, "Hey, MGK, we're hiring you for the weekend. Be prepared to perform on one of these days. Like we're expecting it to be Sunday, but God forbid something happens. You better be ready for Sunday night too." Granted, I think he did perform his concert and he did fulfill his obligations, but I'm saying chain smokers in Chicago or whatever it may be that got you to the track. They should be prepared and do what they can to get ahead of the reoccurring rain. And I know that's easier said than done, but I don't know what they can do, but maybe take a good hard look at things. On to the broadcast. I did have some qualms with the broadcast. We're racing on the smallest track of the year. And at any given point in the broadcast, I think we had 4 or 5 cars in the frame. And I hate to be just, you know, regurgitating what NASCAR Twitter or the messaging boards are saying. And I'll be the first to tell you, I think a lot of times these guys complain about everything. NASCAR fans have that disease where they just bitch about everything. That being said, I'm with them on this complaint. It's the smallest track of the year, and you're focused on one car super tight. Like, show me the track. You can fit the whole field in the frame. Why are you not doing so? Every time there was a caution, they had to cut to show me what happened. That could have easily been in the frame. There's no excuse for that. I understand it's the first race of the season, but I mean, Fox, you've been doing this a long time, especially this is year 3 at the Clash. Like, I don't know. I needed more. I needed more from the video side of things, the broadcast itself. That being said, sorry, I'm going on and on, guys. I have a lot of takes. Kevin Harvick did a great job. I think him and Clint obviously have lasting chemistry from their days racing together. And now that seemed to carry over into the booth. I'm excited to have him around this season, and I think he'll be a welcome addition. Those are my thoughts on the Clash. I defer to you guys now.
Quiggs, what did you think?
I'm kind of conflicted about them moving it to Saturday. They had to, first of all, before I say anything else I know they kind of had to, but it felt like they threw the event away. It felt like it was just sort of like, all right, we're just going to get it done Saturday. There's not going to be any fans. We're not going to do this event again anyway, so we're just going to get it out of the way and get it done. It just, I don't know. A race not being on Sunday loses some of its, like, big race feeling. Not that the Clash is, like, a big race by any means, but, yeah, so, I don't know. It feels weird. I don't want them to start overusing the, like, oh, it might rain, let's move it to Saturday, because it loses some luster for races. But
I think first time in history it's done. And I think the fact that it's not a point race, I believe it's first time in history that NASCAR had pivoted and did it earlier than expected. And since it's not, or at least in modern history, and since it's not a point race, they can kind of fuck with this a little bit. You know what I mean? Like they're able to, and the semantics of having the Coliseum for a couple of extra days. So it was a desperation move. And I think with being close to NASCAR people, the get it done thing is definitely real. Like we saw it in Chicago when they cut the Xfinity race to even below the minimum before they said, shut it down, Cole Custer, you're the win, which got everybody, to Spider's point, clutching their pearls because people just want stuff to complain about. Right? I mean, people legitimately just want to complain about everything they can in NASCAR. So, and then in the Chicago race, they were just trying to get to that minimum. I think 75 laps maybe for that. They just wanted to get to that minimum. That's it. They didn't care if it, because they needed to put on the event. So I think there's a certain amount of pressure. And listen, it's the last year in LA. They can go back, but it was a 3-year deal. So if they're going to continue to do these clashes, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of things. First thing I'm going to do is revisit something that Spider had said with Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick had one last day to prepare. I mean, you guys know every time you do a piece of content, a lot of times you get your ideas day of. You know what I mean? So I think Kevin probably thought that he was going to, do some extra work probably on Sunday before he went on. So I think he did do a good job. Do you think we got a watered down version of Kevin Harvick? Do you think like that guy that used to be a little bit of a bad boy? Do you think we got a PG-13? Not politically correct. I'm not saying that. But do you think at some point like Harvick could be like, I put him in the fucking wall? Like, as opposed to being like, I've been in this situation before.
I think that's common.
And is it, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's his first real broadcast. You probably try to do things a little more buttoned up. I think when you get 15 races in and it's just him and Clint on lap 300 of some race, he'll be a lot looser and they'll kind of just let it fly. But he was kind of calling people out a little bit, and I thought he was very good. And a big thing with him is he's the only guy in the booth that's ever driven the next gen car. So like he'll have insights that they didn't have before.
That is a good point, Quigs. That's a great point. I'm excited to have him, just simply as I told you guys for season 2 of NASCAR Full Speed. My dreams would be to have RFK or Trackhouse, because I like their ownership model and the way that they do things differently. What I like about Kevin Harvick, and that really we haven't seen yet, previously all we've seen from Kevin Harvick, and I shouldn't say all we've seen him driving as a Stewart-Haas driver the last couple of years, and that's kind of what we've known him as, right? But now we kind of get to see him as an unbiased broadcaster, as well as KHI management. So he has a lot of these drivers that he's representing and has, skin in the game on the success riding on these guys. So to me, I'm really excited to watch how that unfolds, and to see kind of if Quiggs's point is true, and if he kind of starts, airing it out and speaking more, frankly as the season goes on. But even so, if he were to keep it the way, I was very content with what we saw in race 1. And even if he had a less day to prepare, I think he's only going to get better. And I think he'll really complement the booth a lot this year. What I'm more concerned about, and this pains me to say, Mike Joy, one of my favorite guys, one of the beauty staple of our sport, unfortunately, I feel like is just aging and only probably going to trend down. So hopefully Harvick can kind of help level out that ship and carry them to keep
You're selling your Mike Joy stock?
Listen, Mike Joy's my guy. He's the old dog you love, but you realize he's graying a little bit, and it's very sad realization. And some of the most iconic calls, honestly, maybe not today, but we should have a conversation on who we think should really take the reins moving forward after the Mike Joy reign. Because as much as I love having drivers in the booth, I almost feel like.
Well, you're saying it's not a Lee Corso thing yet. Like Lee Corso had lost his faculties and then went down. But I think to Spider's point, this guy's been doing it for a long time too. Like maybe, I don't know, where does he want to do this until he dies, or does he naturally go? I mean, he's got less time ahead of him than he has behind him, certainly.
True.
So it's definitely, yeah. A lot of people say that about me too, Spider. So I take umbrage with this a little bit. So fuck you.
You're looking in the rear view. You're looking in the rear view, being like, "Damn, look at that horizon! Everything was beautiful." Meanwhile, I'm looking out the windshield, being like, "Let's go! This is going to be
Yeah.
awesome."
I think though that Clint is providing some comedic relief in there. You know what I mean? Like ribbing and original host of Rubbin Is Racing, by the way. I think he is doing his best to kind of feed Harvick some stuff where he can go with it. You can tell Clint's more seasoned in the booth at least. So I
And
think
I
it is
think
going to work.
that's his role. That's
Yeah.
his role. As Quigg said, Clint's a couple of years removed from driving now, and Harvick's the only one in the booth with next gen Cup experience. I don't even know if we're still calling it next gen, but you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
Driving that car. So to me, Harvick's role is the analyst and the actual technical, specialist. Whereas Clint Boyer, who we all know and love, is there as kind of the comedic relief and the guy that lightens the mood amongst Mike Joy, who is the by the book traditional announcer,
That being
broadcaster.
said, when you were like Clint Boyer, who we all know and love, a lot of people do not like Clint in the booth.
No, they don't. They don't like him.
I think that people are going to come around to him. I do think
Yes.
the existing Harvick and Boyer chemistry will result in good things. And I think
I
we kind
do
of saw
think-
that with Clint and Jeff Gordon as they kind of busted each other's balls. Granted, we were robbed of that, but I think hopefully we can get back to that with having Harvick in the booth.
Yeah, I think people will kind of see them as a 1-2 punch, and it'll like get people on Boyer's side. I don't know. I've never disliked Clint in the booth. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I've always liked him in the booth, and Harvick will make him better. But yeah, he gets a lot of hate.
I shit on the Clash a couple of times on this show. I will tell you, I watched it from start to finish, and to tune in from the very beginning and watch the first half of the race, or 74 of the 75 laps, be green flag laps. Right? I mean, I don't know, were there any cautions? It was unbelievably clean racing, so it zipped by. So the first half, even though I didn't get a lot out of it, at the very least it went by. And then the second half, I was invested. I mean, we know we like Ty Gibbs here, and then to watch him get basically prison raped every time on a restart, and you see what veterans can do, right? Like compared to somebody who's immensely talented but young. Like I really like that storyline, and to have Denny Hamlin win after just putting out that Netflix special and showing how he thinks he's got one more year where he can compete for it, then coming, like it's almost a storybook ending for NASCAR in that respect. Like otherwise it wasn't perfect. To have, like the Mexican League come and race, in this same weekend, which was a big deal was made out of it, and then to have Daniel Suarez become King Taco La Batalla and El Coliseo. In El Coliseo. Don't know what the fuck that means. In the Battle of the Taco, I don't know. But to have Daniel Suarez win that's perfect. I mean, that's right. That sets up perfect. I mean, we'll talk about winners and losers of this thing, and we'll talk about some of the, the fighting that had gone on during and after. Like that to me, I thought it was the most interesting one to watch. I was invested with,
I agree.
Is the rain coming at any minute? Is Ty going to win his first race and it's not a points race? So blah, blah, blah. Is him and Joey, is Joey going to do it? Honestly, I enjoyed it for the first time.
I'm glad you
agree.
mentioned that, Large, because I think in all of this, as much as the winners were the Cup Series, the fact that they got their race in, and the fans of the Cup Series and etc. The losers are the people that got shafted on all of this, in my opinion, was the NASCAR Mexico Series, which race went from being a undercard event and having the whole crowd watch to an empty arena after the Clash ended and after the TV audience left. But a couple takeaways. One, I may sound like an idiot for saying this. I didn't realize the NASCAR Mexico cars have stickers on the windshield. That kind of reminded me of like Talladega Nights when I saw the clip of, granted they're only on the passenger side, but I love that. That was really funny to me. And two, I love that Daniel Suarez won. Great for, everything and the storyline. But I do feel as though they probably got a little bit of their shine taken away from the circumstances that kind of, and the audible that NASCAR was forced into.
And by the way, Daniel Suarez, we mentioned it at the end of the year last year. Who's on the hot seat going into the season? And we talked about Bowman, and then we mentioned Daniel Suarez too. Since the win in Sonoma, all the stuff that he's done, we're wondering whether or not his seat is hot. Is all that we were saying. Whether or not, and especially the way Trackhouse is able to move around and make moves and stuff like that. Then he comes in, he doesn't qualify for the Clash. He's one of those guys that didn't qualify. And then all of a sudden he comes in and becomes King Taco, La Batalla, and El Coliseo. I mean, that is making lemonade. That's making lemonade. Go.
I don't know if it is large. I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sound off in the comments. If I'm Justin Marks, I don't know that a NASCAR Mexico Series win is cooling Daniel Suarez's seat any less. I think he's going to have to prove himself this season, and I look forward to seeing him do exactly that. But I don't think this helps his resume in terms of a contract extension. Quiggs, what's your take on that take?
Of Daniel Suarez? I don't know how hot his seat's going to be.
Do you think the win at this series is helping his job security in the Cup Series?
No. But it's good for his brand.
I think it's good for NASCAR.
It's good for his brand. It's good for the league, the series, etc. Everyone wins.
Right. And when Coke all of a sudden introduces Agua Frescas and they make him the face of it and stuff like that, I think anything like this is good for NASCAR. I think it's good. Yeah, it's probably better for his brand than it is for him as a driver. Who had the? So I'm saying that kind of saved Daniel's weekend. And Spider, you had mentioned it. I'm going to ask you basically an over/under. Like, who did you have as having the best weekend versus having the worst? And just for the Clash.
Pretty popular opinions. I was impressed with Ty Gibbs. Aside from his finishing position, which I'm not even privy to off the top, just going off what I saw on the screen, he ran a hell of the race. As you said, Large, the first X amount of laps were caution-free. It was super clean race, and Ty Gibbs worked his way to the front in a relatively clean fashion, and I think what I saw from him was really promising. I expect him to – I'm taking over half a win from Ty Gibbs this year, and I think he'll get one on the board this year, and I expect him to be in the playoffs. I was actually hoping, for the sake of the Large household, I know your daughter and wife are Ty Gibbs fans, so I was hoping he would pull out his first one. Granted, it would be exhibition. I digress. On terms of the unders and who disappointed me, two surprising performances, and I would blame this more on the pit calls, not the drivers' skills at all, because the names obviously are playoff drivers. Christopher Bell had one of the best looking cars, in my opinion, in this race, but just didn't deliver. Horrible strategy call to stay on with the scuffed tires, and Blaney did the same thing. Difference being for Blaney, he had the provisional, but I'm taking the under on those two guys strictly off strategy calls, and again, that is their pit guys and their pit crew, not necessarily the driver that I'm blaming that on. So that's what I had taken away from that race. Quiggs, what did you see?
I'll just do overs. Denny, I mean, he won, but I think just with the Netflix series, if you watch that and then you're like, oh, I'm finally tuned into a race, I think it's very good that Denny won, and you're like, oh, this guy is the face of the
Denny
sport.
Definitely converted the audience into Denny Hamlin fans after that. You're right, Quiggs.
And then the others, Ty Gibbs, not even solely for, like, I think he's going to have a very big year this year, and I think he raced really well. And then the Joey Logano thing, I think that's just like kind of a rite of passage of like, all right, you're no longer like just a rookie, like you're a driver that is going to be competitive this year, going to get into some shit with drivers. We're not going to just be like, oh, that's the kid, let him do whatever he wants. I think it was a little bit of like a welcome to the league, Ty Gibbs, like you're here for real now.
Yeah.
So I think that
I
was
would say
also, I forgot to mention, I would love to see that storyline has kind of existed, and it obviously still has legs after this race. If this is something the pot's gonna continue to boil throughout the season, add that to my short list and make that my third request for season 2 of NASCAR Full Speed Netflix. Go ahead, Large.
why don't we break down the smoke, because there was a lot of smoke. But before we do, I will say from an under-over standpoint, I put Blaney in an over because Blaney with the provisional started last. He had a very quiet but methodical way to go P3. I mean, starting dead last in a, less than a quarter-mile track and being able to get through traffic like that. Ty Gibbs, by the way, was in a rocket ship. That car was a fucking rocket. And so I think Blaney, especially after his success last year, I think he should be pretty happy. Chris Bell, after blowing a brake rotor in the finals last year, didn't have a lot to hang his hat on, and then being sent home before the race started because he didn't qualify. That's a kick in the... I'm going to say to you guys, who had the worst day? I'm going to give you three options. Did Chris Bell have the worst day by not making it, by not qualifying? Did Chase Elliott have the worst day by coming in second to last or whatever it is after having the season that he had? And, Chase Elliott had said in an interview, my life isn't a book where it's a series of chapters. Every season's its own book. I closed the book on 23. I'm starting a new book for 24. And his first chapter, The Clash, was a fucking stinker. So Chris Bell, Chase Elliott, or Noah Gragson. Like Noah Gragson coming back from all that stuff, fresh set of downs. We're going to speak to Noah. I know he's taking it easy a little bit on press just to ease into it. We can't wait to have him on. And I am rooting for him as hard as anybody. But he didn't have a good race, right? Like Noah Gragson had to be disappointed to come back, want to light up the world. A lot of the other rookies didn't even make it. Hocevar didn't make, there's all these people who didn't. Zane Smith, Josh Berry did not, qualify for the race. But Noah was in there, essentially, his rookie season or, whatever you want to call it, because he didn't finish his rookie season. So who do you think had the worst out of those three? I'm going to ask you, Spider. Out of those three, and if there's somebody I'm missing, but I think out of those three, who had the worst day?
It's Chase Elliott, and you got me rethinking all my over-unders because now I need to go over on Blaney. You're right.
Yeah, take Blaney off your under.
He took a provisional car to the fucking P3 following a championship season. You're absolutely right. Chase Elliott should be on the under, finishing second to last after the season he had last year. And the Noah Gragson point you mentioned leads me to a question I have for you guys. John Hunter Nemechek and Noah Gragson. John Hunter actually finished 13th, which looking at now is genuinely surprising, given that I thought he was a couple laps down, and he was for a good part of that race. But it seemed like him and Noah were kind of battling for who was worst on the track. Do you think there was a race for the race there happening?
It's got to be an unconscious thing. There has to be an unconscious thing for Noah Gragson to just want to beat the 42, at least, because if he doesn't think that he's in a situation where he's going to win every week. I don't know if Eric Amarola had that idea when he got behind the wheel that say, oh, by the way, the new front on the Ford is pretty cool, right? The Dark Horse front. Oh, man, I kind of dig that shit.
That thing's sick. As the broadcast pointed out, though, a good point, but I think it was Clinton said it, that's not going to be a factor until Daytona, where we can actually see the impact that has on Aero.
Yeah. So I think to your point, I didn't think about that either. There's a race inside of a race every time Noah and John Hunter are on that track.
Absolutely. What Quiggs, did we get your answer on who had the worst day?
No, but it's the same as yours. I think it's got to be Chase. I think you really want to come out after the season you had and be like, all right, that Chase Elliott's gone. The one is back, and it pains me as a 9 guy to put him on the. It pains me as a 9 guy to put him on the under, but he deserves it this week, and hopefully he can shake that rust. And with everything that we've said in this entire podcast, it's the Clash. It doesn't mean too much. The fact that Chase didn't do good here doesn't mean he's gonna suck all season.
And listen, we got 2 weeks, but we got 2 weeks before Daytona, so we're going to break that down like the Zapruder film next week, and we can talk about what Chase's chances are then, and we're going to make some predictions for the whole season next week as well. Let's just cover some of the smoke that we had, because for an exhibition race, tempers were high. I mean, I know that Kyle Larson had some beef with Bubba, and he pointed it out at the end. Chastain and Reddick seemed to have kissed and made up, but Chastain and Reddick had some beef. Ricky was angry. Ricky was angry. He got into it with McDowell, and then at the break at the half, I mean, he took down the netting of John Hunter's, car and got in there. Ricky got in there, and then the biggest one of them all was Joey versus Ty. So I guess, that's going to be the one we're going to talk most about because there was the most heard. I didn't hear what Ricky said inside of John Hunter's car. I don't know if anybody did, but it wasn't welcome back. So what did you think? What do you think about the tensions running high on an exhibition race like that? And is there anything you want to say about any of those specific beefs? Spider?
Must see TV. That's really the only word for it. I guess actually back to my criticism of the broadcast. If there's one thing I could add, it would be that we stay live on the broadcast after they sign off, and they maybe like send us down to the where they're like packing up the cars and like show us some of that shit. Because as much as I say must see TV, that's something that we don't see on TV and we see on Twitter and social media after the fact. I would love if there were a way to capture this more in real time. It sounded like the John Hunter, Ricky Stenhouse exchange was really the only one that happened during the broadcast. And even that one, I really only saw the clip of Ricky pulling down the window net on Twitter. I would have loved, I kind of wanted to tweet out that clip in reverse. So it looked like Ricky was putting up John Hunter's window net and just say like NASCAR is so back. Nice of Ricky Stenhouse to put this window net up for John Hunter. But no, point being, you just mentioned Large. There's 4 instances of beef that occurred in this exhibition race that I can point to. My one takeaway of all of it is that it's just fueling the fire of what we have to watch for this season. So hopefully Joey and Ty Gibbs beef kind of continues to boil. As we heard Ty Gibbs say at the end of that clip, he's been, quote, watching Joey do this his whole life. And Joey said, keep watching. So I'm hoping for just that. I'm hoping this goes on. And I've been very vocal about this take for a long time now, a couple seasons. I think that NASCAR security is too good, and they need to let them fight because that will really help ratings, maybe even more than this Netflix Full Speed series. But that's where I'm at.
Did Joey fuck himself? Like, did Joey Logano, who I know can be pretty emotional about things, by going over and doing that in this day and age with NASCAR, you know how Denny got fined for something he said on a podcast? Now is NASCAR hypersensitive to see if Joey then exacts any kind of revenge after seeing what he had done by approaching Ty at the hall or afterwards? Like, if that happened, like, because Ty had overdriven the 4th turn, and then he sent Joey, right? He used up Joey. That's what happened. And Ty had said, listen, I overdrove it. And that was what had happened. And by the way, that's something we've seen Joey do numerous times with numerous other drivers, or worse, right? So if Joey said, you know what, I'm putting that in the back of my fucking head, and if I ever get into a point where I can get that kid back, I'll get him. But now NASCAR's got to be like, Joey Logano is on the watch list for how he treats the 54. You think he fucked himself with that?
I don't think so. I mean,
no,
not any more than anyone else has in the past. Like people do that all the time. And NASCAR, they shouldn't overdo that because they should be begging drivers to do this after every race. Because I don't know, there's some races where the most entertaining things happen after the race. And yeah, you don't want to discourage drivers from getting clips like that and having tame arguments. I think it was good.
I think that was best case scenario.
Yeah.
To me, if NASCAR, I mean, obviously, best case scenario for me is they throw hands, but like NASCAR, you get the drama of a post-race exchange. You get the buzz of like there being a feud. You have people inclined to watch and see what happens now, and nothing really physically, at least, came of it. No, I mean, obviously, no one was hurt or anything like that. But to answer your question, I'll go the complete opposite way with it. I think he would be fucked. I think Joey is not fucked. I think he's fucked if he goes the other way with it, and I think Joey's fucked if he allows this to happen to him. If he doesn't react, if he's just going to allow himself to get pushed around on the track, then he's really in trouble. But no, I mean, I think he handled it well, and he went and spoke and defended himself and stood up for himself post race. So I'm interested to see what's going to come of this in coming races.
I don't think anyone lost that argument. I think it was a very good back and forth of Ty being like, I've been watching.
Rowan's off
life.
screen
like,
right now talking about his love for Logano as we speak.
I'll tell you what, Logano is a lot bigger than Ty. Like when I watch that, I got the Logano shirt on, by the way. Shout out to 22 team. Logano is a lot bigger than Ty. Like when I saw them go at, because now every time I see that, I'm waiting for a punch to be thrown, and it seemed like a like grown man talking to a kid almost. So I like the fact that Ty kept his ground. And I like to, I've watched this my whole life, keep watching. I thought that's a pretty good way to end it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm here for it. I'm here for the smoke, just like everybody else. So maybe we get it going forward. Before we leave this, the LA Clash. So since LA seems to be done, at least for the time being, and again, they can go back there, but the contract is up. Where should they go next year if they do a Clash type thing? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Because everyone who's complaining about LA, where should they go? Spider?
I'll start. It's been rumored. I've reported these rumors, etc. We've seen Formula One do an electric series here in Brooklyn. Not here. I'm not there. I'm in Vegas right now. But I would love to see them go back to New York, whether it be Brooklyn, whether it be Manhattan, whether it be East Rutherford or New Jersey. The greater New York City area deserves a race. Sure, we have Pocono, we have Watkins Glen, but those are all a road trip. I'm talking about something for the 8.5 million people that live in the greater New York City area, something close. Give me the Clash outside of MetLife, inside of MetLife, somewhere near it, and let's bring NASCAR to that audience that has otherwise written it off and just seen it on Talladega Nights.
Let me ask you something, Spider. Is that something that they should do in lieu of the Chicago street race just for weather purposes? Because I can tell you right now, I'm here. You abandoned me. I was in Brooklyn this weekend, and I was in East Rutherford, and it was no place to be racing a fucking race car. I know LA wasn't either, in retrospect, but they had better chance of having good weather. But do you think it's more like a July thing?
Rutherford is a city with more asphalt than grass, as is anyways. So there definitely has to be a spot for it there. I think both the Clash and the Chicago street race should be permanent in any location. They should be, reviewed and kind of tinkered as the demand or, of NASCAR in certain markets may or may not exist. So I think we should keep a flexible, open, audible kind of thought process when it comes to both those events.
What do you think, Quiggs? Where should they go next year in lieu of LA?
I guess first question is All-Star race this year in North Wilkesboro?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to suggest North Wilkesboro. I don't know. I think NASCAR can look at what they did the past 3 years, and it was obviously an attempt to grow a fan base in a new area. I don't know if they did that. Like, I think they can crunch their numbers and see. But it's got to be very expensive to put on a race like this, and it would be even more expensive to do New York or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if they just scrap it.
Or go back to Daytona?
Just don't even have, because they didn't have anything before Daytona in the past, right?
No, I mean, but I think like if they were to go back to Daytona, a lot of people would be pretty, like to do some sort of Clash, in Daytona or something. I didn't think about it till Spider had said how the Mexico series kind of got hosed. I mean, why not do it in fucking Mexico?
That would be awesome.
With that, because they want an international footprint. I mean, Trump will be president next. I mean, that's just how it goes, Quiggs. I'm sorry. We actually open the wall. We have 38 drivers go right through the wall like that scene in Sicario, just guarded by, machine gun toting guys. You get down there to whatever, Estadio Olimpico, and you run the fucking thing in Mexico. That's an international footprint because we were going to go to Montreal, and Montreal got nixed. Mexico is lovely this time of year. So if you can avoid some kidnapping, fuck it.
I like Mexico.
Take it down south of the border.
I'm with either. My opinion is that the Clash and the street races should be subject to kind of the Olympic model where maybe every 4 years they move to a different city or something like that, where, it is rotating or different.
Yeah, like Super Bowl.
That Chicago and LA will eventually get stale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
I just think the street races are not a good way to get people into NASCAR. I think a lot of these street races just like, and kind of going street race / like road course. It's just not the best NASCAR product to watch for a newcomer. So it's like, do you want to make that investment for?
The problem is,
that may not work.
The Daytona 500 was my first experience with NASCAR. That's like what got me hooked. So for a lot of people, for their first race to be at a street race in the city they live in that otherwise doesn't have NASCAR events, that they're watching from a fixed perspective where they can only see maybe 1 or 2 turns of the track. That's obviously a very different experience than, full throttle aero plate racing. So it is tough if you're going to try to acquire new fans in new markets. You can't really build a super speedway track. You feel like a street course is the other safest, but yeah.
Our next stop is a super speedway. Our next stop is Daytona, week after the Super Bowl. We're bringing a big posse down to Daytona. I think 13 people. Production and content is going down there. The Out and About guys, the KFC Radio guys, Frankie Borelli's going to be down there. Obviously, the Rubbin Is Racing guys. So it's going to be a pretty big posse. And on Saturday, the Cup Series race on Sunday is sold out. There's still tickets available for Saturday's Xfinity race. By the way, I'm predicting again. I changed my tune last year, and I think it was Quiggs that put me on to this. Watch and see how much more exciting the Xfinity race is going to be this year than the Cup Series race, because we're going to have, SVG and Amarola and Custer and AJ Allmendinger and all these, familiar faces, not so familiar faces, Sheldon Creed in a new whip and a couple of rookies and stuff. So I'm expecting it to be pretty exciting. So Saturday, what Spider and I are throwing, we're throwing a tailgate. We're throwing a tailgate Saturday at Daytona. So you have to buy tickets. You have to buy tickets. It's a VIP experience. I believe tickets are $59 a piece. With that $59, don't jump down my fucking throat. You get a free t-shirt, the t-shirt that I myself designed. It's a fucking banger. Barstool takes over Daytona. On top of that, you get a ticket to the race, and then you get to hang out with us for a couple hours. I think we're going to have a couple of drivers there to talk with us. Kevin will be there. Fights will be there. Patty will be there. Joey will be there. I think Frankie's going to be there. What's her name? The young lady from KFC Radio. The producer. Jackie will be there. Pavs will be there. Manoli will be there. Devlin will be there doing our stuff. Liam will be there. There'll be a bunch of people from Barstool just kind of hanging out. So come on down with us. General admission to Saturday's race. Exclusive access to the VIP Barstool tailgate during a live show that we're throwing on. A meet and greet with us. And you know me and Spider. There is no red carpet or, thing. We're in there. Right? You want to do a shot? You want to do a couple of beers? I'm in there with you. Just no fentanyl. And then you get a custom branded NASCAR X Barstool t-shirt, which I think is going to be good. Okay, so just so you guys know, we're going to be with Cabo Wabo on Sunday. 10 people. We're going to be in a bus ride with taking them through, having a couple of drinks. Then we'll be down on the grid doing whatever we do. If you guys are down on the grid Sunday, we'll be down there with the whole crew too. So my point is that Barstool is invading Daytona in a couple of weeks. We have way too many people going, so we're going to be just about everywhere down there, drinking at night, drinking in the day, and watching some goddamn racing responsibly, because that's what we do. So, check out, you can go, we'll post a link on how you can get tickets to hang out with us on Saturday, and then Sunday you're shit out of luck, except for 10 people who had won thanks to Cabo Wabo. Unless you guys have something else to say, I'm going to close the podcast right there. And welcome everybody back to the 2024 season. We're past the Clash, and now we're on to some real fucking racing. We can't wait to get down to Daytona, and we can't wait to see you guys next week.